Hey, I'm Todd. Thanks for choosing to watch my video, and if you would subscribe it, like it, all that stuff, that'd be great. Otherwise, enjoy the video, and I hope it gives you the information you need and is helpful to you. Take care. Alright, we're looking at a 2001 Ford Expedition. We seem to have an issue with the rear caliper. Leaking fluid, so we're actually going to do, because the brakes are worn out on the other side, so we're going to do rear brake calipers, pads and rotors on this. You take your wheel off. We want to break the lug nuts loose, all bolts, everything's left to loosen, counterclockwise, right to tighten, clockwise. Break them loose on the ground a turn or two, then go ahead and jack up the vehicle. Probably jack it up on the pumpkin there in the middle. Use safety stands, protect yourself. Nice solid frame here. Jack it up, use safety stands, large logs, protect yourself from being crushed. And take the wheel off, the rest of the lug nuts off the rest of the way. Take the tire off. Here's what you see. I think these are 21 millimeter lug nuts. So, brake rotor, outer brake pad, brake caliper, inner brake pad. And yeah, this does not have a caliper mount. It's built into the knuckle back here, I believe, so we're good to go. Not a lot to it. So we'll take two bolts out and take the caliper off. 12 millimeter, I believe, is what they are. If you're just going to replace your brake pads and you want to, because they're worn out, you want to check your caliper first. So put a screwdriver or pry bar or something in here and just pull back. Ooh! Of course, we're working against the spring there. Just get in there. And you can check your caliper piston, make sure it collapses, and then check your slides, which is actually good. So in theory, then you'd be able to replace your brake pads with confidence that you're not going to have an issue. If you have a piston not collapsing or the slides aren't working, you might consider a brand new one or a remanufactured one. 12 millimeter ratchet wrench I'm using. Just have a good selection of wrenches, sockets, torque wrenches to do the job properly. Bolt sizes can change. If the calipers have been replaced already, then the bolt size might not be the same. Then these will rock out because the top doesn't have another set of teeth like this. See the difference? So there we are, calipers removed. Be easy. We'll focus, bro. Thank you. A little rust buildup here, so we can spray a little rust penetrant, and we'll just tap this with a hammer and knock it off. You do want to, as a best practice, replace the rotor or have it machined. Here's our emergency brake shoes. They look to be in fine shape, so that is good. And you can clean these or replace them. We've got new ones. They're just our friction fit. You just hammer them off and hammer the new ones on. We got our parts kind of laid out here. We got rotors here, We're using Raybestos coated rotors. You don't have to do any washing. If you don't get them, it might be a good idea if you're in the salt states or on the coasts where rust's a real issue, but otherwise you get a regular rotor. It'll have a anti-rust coating on the surface or all over, so you want to wash it off with some warm soap and water and then towel dry it or let it air dry, and then you'll be good to go. But wash the rust, prevent the rust oily goo off of both sides of the rotor. Make sure you match up your parts too before you get too far. If you found out you got the wrong parts, it's annoying. Our caliper over here, about ready to go. Some brake pads right there. So we'll throw a rotor on. So we've matched up our brake pads, the old ones with the new ones, so that we have our notch situation here in the right spot. Put a little lubricant on the contact points here. And drop this in here. Oop. It's going to go in the piston. If you have difficulty getting the caliper on, it could be because these are sliding out towards the pad, so you might need to be pushing these backwards to get it to slide on. If you're having problems, look out for that. This one will just drop in place. Make sure it's contacting evenly and not cockeyed or anything. So we should be about ready to install that baby. Got 2 new bolts. You can wiggle the caliper around a little bit to jiggle it to get it to allow the bolts to go into place. Go ahead and for sure start them by hand. Tighten them down. I think the torque on this is 21 to 26 foot-pounds. And the last thing we'll do is unzip the banjo bolt off of the caliper and mount it onto our new caliper. Right now at this time it's a 15 millimeter. Sometimes you get new bolts, sometimes you don't, the banjo bolt. Just make sure there's no old washer on the old banjo bolt you're going to reuse probably. You got some new copper gaskets, so one will go on there. Wipe that down, make sure there's no gaskets sticking to this as well. I believe that's also 25 foot-pounds. Alright, the rear caliper pin bolts are 20 foot-pounds. The rear hose bolt is 23 to 29. So we'll just make sure it doesn't leak. Get a couple cans of brake clean, and we'll do some bleeding. There's the bleeder screw, got to bleed it yet. So that'll be next. So I have someone going in there. They're going to pump the brakes a few times, and they're going to hold the pedal down, and I'm going to open up the bleeder screw and let air and fluid out. If you haven't pumped, go ahead a few times. Air shot out. Pump it. You'll pump it a few more times and hold the brake pedal down. Pump it. And he holds it down until I close it. Once I close it, then he can start pumping again. Pump it. That was a nice solid stream, so we'll be doing one more, then move on. And pump it. Had one little shot there of maybe air, so we'll do it one more time. All right, take a little break. So this is a rear caliper, but it's the same for it's the same for all the calipers. And we'll just we can wash this off, clean it off with some brake clean, and then if you want to check for leaks, you can start it up. Make sure it's dry, of course. Clean it with some brake clean, let it all dry. Once it's dry, then you can start it up and push on the brakes and see if there's any fluid leaking out anywhere. Of course, after you've bled all the brakes and put the tire on, like I said, these are 14 millimeter lug nuts. You can tighten them up 150 foot-pounds. So if it comes up, here's a 12 millimeter wrench. These are not 12 millimeter lug nuts and studs because it doesn't fit. 14 millimeter does. A little tip for sizing there. Here we are under the hood for the Expedition brake fluid. Cap twists on and off. Got a maximum and a minimum on the side. Just try and keep the fluid in the middle somewhere. Be good. Less headache. So right now it's just below maximum, so I'm okay with that. Just maybe wipe it down a little bit and then we're good. Pump the brakes a few times. Double check your fluid level, and always pump your brakes a few times before you put it in drive or reverse, because your brake pedal may be low and you might not have good brakes right away. So always pump them several times until you get a good brake pedal before driving it. That's replacing your rear brake calipers, pads and rotors on your 2001 and other model years, I'm sure, Ford Expedition